Good morning, people of Earth. Reach out, my friends, and imagine the hands. Remember the hands that you have held here in this place. Reach out, remember the hands of friends and strangers that you have taken. Hands that were rough or soft and doughy and a little damp. Hands that were much bigger than yours or much smaller than yours. Hands and fingers twisted or missing. Hands that must have lived lives all their own. Yes, these are the hands of the people whom we miss and who miss us. And those are the hands that will at some point once again grasp us, welcoming us back into this place. So welcome now, though, to this place, this time of worship. I'm Reverend Hank Peirce. I am the minister of the Unitarian Universalist Church of Reading, Massachusetts, and my pronouns are he, him, and his. And it is great to have you all with us on this snowy Sunday morning. I hope you all are well and are tucked up safe in bed, or you've been out shoveling and you're already well fortified and ready to hit the rest of the day, and you thought you'd stop here for a little worship first, and we are grateful for that. Now let us move on with the rest of our service. Next is the lighting of our chalice.
In the light of truth, the warmth of community, the fire of commitment that gather this day, may the flame we now kindle be to us a symbol of the holiness we seek. We are Unitarian Universalists, the church of open mind, loving heart, and helping hands.
Good morning. My name is Charlene Reynolds-Santo. I'm a member of the worship arts team. At this time, we are still unable to worship in person, so we continue to gather virtually, working towards creating a welcoming environment to nurture and explore individual spirituality, build a committed and loving community, and to heal the world. At UUCR, you are welcome here, whoever you are, wherever you are. You are welcome to be yourself. Whether you are in your pajamas or your Sunday best, whether you are gay, straight, or questioning, no matter what your abilities are, limitations, or interests are, you are welcome here. You are welcome here today and always. If you are watching this service on its initial broadcast on December 6th at 10 a.m., please join us after the service for fellowship. This is a great way to keep connected and to check in on one another in our church community using small group conversations via Zoom. The link to this Zoom meeting can be found on the weekly UUCR newsletter. As we begin today's service, I want to tell you again that you belong here. You belong here, even if it's just for the next 45 minutes, although we do hope it's longer, you belong here. And we are so grateful that you have chosen to spend time with us here today. Now please get comfortable, take a deep breath, and enjoy today's service.
On our second Sunday of Advent, a season that invites us to wait, we light a candle to represent love, and a practice to consider the love that we hold and that we can share, knowing that there is always love needed and love to be given somewhere.
Good morning. I'm Mary Cunningham, the music director here at the UU Church of Reading, and this is my family's Advent wreath. We've been lighting this since my children were very small, and since we were Unitarian Universalists, it didn't really matter what color the candles were or what week we were lighting it for. We did keep track though, and so I have 2 candles lit for this second week of Advent. What mattered was that we were together and that we were lighting candles to drive the dark of December away. Please join me as we sing There Is More Love Somewhere this week. There is more love somewhere. There is more love somewhere. I'm gonna keep on till I find it. There is more love somewhere.
This is our 4th day in the celebration of Chalice, and we have lit 3 candles so far: red, orange, yellow. Today we light our 4th and our green candle to remind us that we are free to search for truth and meaning. What the heck does that mean? Searching for truth and meaning. Well, in religious life and in church talk, religions are often sets of ideas created by people in places in time. And Unitarian Universalists believe that our ideas change as we learn more and grow more and live more. We learn things differently. And when we learn things differently, we make different choices. We have a different understanding about things. I wonder if there's anything that you've learned differently in your life. I have something. When I was young, I believed that all cats were female creatures. And I thought that all dogs were boy creatures. Now we know so much more about gender now that to me sounds silly when I think about how I believed things when I was small. But I simply didn't know any different. I was making a category for cats, and I was making a category for dogs. And that was how I was seeking to understand things. And as I grew older, I grew to know differently. And now I know very differently. I wonder if there's something like that for you. What's something you've learned that might have changed? As people of faith, we believe that it's important to know what's true and to know what's real for ourselves and for other people. So not only do we celebrate that we're free to search for truth and meaning, we also feel a call and a tug and a responsibility to do our best to gather good information that keeps us in line with all of our principles and all of the other ideas that we share as UUs that help us to live purposeful, helpful lives. So, celebrating green today and our freedom to search for truth and meaning.
Hello, and welcome. I'm Katie McQuaige Lucas, and my pronouns are she and hers. Will you please join me now, however you are able, in a spirit of prayer or meditation? Spirit of life and of love, we know you in so many ways, finding you in moments of beauty and joy, in moments of pain. We find you in music and we find you in stillness. Some of us call you by name, some of us do not. We arrive here this morning from so many different places. Some of us are entering a season of busyness, and we might perhaps be overwhelmed. Some of us are disconnected and perhaps feeling alone. Some of us are joyful today, some of us sorrow, many of us are anxious. In this moment, we hope to set aside all that came with us, to seek a moment of stillness, to seek connection, and to perhaps find within ourselves a centering, a grounding. Today, we join the larger Unitarian Universalist community in mourning the Reverend Dr. Hope Johnson, and we celebrate her many years of ministry in congregations and in our larger community. Advent is a season of waiting, and so we pray that we find within ourselves some peace and also some hope so that we can continue to look ahead. We also pray that we might be fully present, though our lives may hold many challenges, so that we might meet them well, and so that we might also fully experience the gifts our lives may hold. Blessed be, and Amen.
Gun violence touches every community in America. For far too long, life-saving laws have been thwarted by gun lobbyists and politicians who refuse to take common sense steps that will save lives. This month's Share the Plate recipient is Everytown for Gun Safety. This organization was founded in 2013 with the goal of ending gun violence across the country. Our financial help will fund efforts in Massachusetts to educate politicians and the public. This effort will build on their past successes of passing over a dozen common sense gun laws, many with bipartisan support. To donate, you may use the Donate Now button on the church's website or send a check directly to the church. Unless otherwise specified, half of your donation will go to this month's Share the Plate recipient. Please give as generously as you are willing and able to our virtual Sunday Share the Plate offering to support both Everytown for Gun Violence and the mission of UUCR. Thank you. Today's reading is Fire by Judy Brown. What makes a fire burn is the space between the logs, a breathing space. Too much of a good thing, too many logs packed in too tight, can douse the fire almost as easily as a pail of water would. So building fires requires attention, a space in between. A fire grows simply because the space is there, with openings in which the flames that know just how it wants to burn can find its way.
Do you know what a circuit rider is? A circuit rider were preachers back in the 18th and 19th centuries who would ride from church to church and hold services. Well, one day, one of these circuit riders was out and he came upon a farmer out working in the fields. Thinking to start a conversation and perhaps invite this farmer to church, the preacher called out, "Fine day, isn't it?" "It's fine for you," the farmer replied. "All you have to do is ride around on that horse thinking about God all day long while I have to sweat here in the field and then walk home afterwards. I don't think it's right that you should have things so easy while I have to work so hard." The preacher responded, "You're right. You do work hard in the fields, and I admire that. But you need to realize that the kind of work that I do is a different kind, but it's still work." "Yeah, sure," the farmer answered, "but it's not really work. All you do is think about God all the time while riding on that horse. That's not hard." "Oh, it's harder than you think," the minister answered. Then a thought occurred to the preacher. "I'll tell you what. Just to prove to you how difficult it can be to just think about God, if you can think about God and nothing else, for 1 minute, I will give you my horse." "You can't be serious," said the farmer. But the preacher assured the farmer that she was. "You're on," said the farmer, and immediately sat down in silence. 10 seconds went by, then 20 seconds, then 25. About then, the farmer looked up at the minister and said, "Does that include the saddle?" All the farmer had to do to get that horse was to say nothing. All they had to do was think about God and nothing else for 60 seconds. They couldn't do that. That was the wrong thing to ask. That was the wrong thing to do. The farmer had just one job. But just like that farmer, there are a lot of people who have a hard time just doing that. Sitting quiet and thinking about God. And when I say a lot of people, well, I'm talking about you and me. I've heard it said that nature abhors a vacuum, in the same way that people abhor being quiet or just quietness. They struggle with silence, they struggle with stillness. They, you and me, struggle with knowing too much and at the same time not knowing enough. There's a Buddhist story that I'm reminded of that Thich Nhat Hanh tells a version of. Thich Nhat Hanh is a Vietnamese Buddhist monk. In his version of it, he says, "The Buddha always told his disciples not to waste their time and energy on metaphysical speculation. Whenever the Buddha was asked a metaphysical question, about heaven and the afterlife and all that sort of stuff, the Buddha just remained silent. Instead, he directed his disciples towards practical efforts. Questioned one day about the problems of the infinity of the world, the Buddha said, whether the world is finite or infinite, limited or unlimited, the problem of your liberation remains the same. Basically, you are asking questions that you don't need to worry about. Another time, a student came and asked the Buddha a similar question. And he said, suppose a man is struck by a poisoned arrow, and the doctor wishes to take the arrow out immediately. Suppose then that the man does not want the arrow removed until he knows who shot the arrow and the age of the person who shot the arrow, or who the man's parents were, or why he shot it, or what wood was used in the arrow and what sort of bird did those feathers come from? Was it a vulture or a stork or a hawk or a peacock? What would happen? If he were there to wait until all of these questions had been answered, the man would die. Life is so short, he says. It must not be spent in endless metaphysical speculation. That does not bring us any closer to the truth. We have so many opportunities to busy our lives when we should be taking time to live in the here and the now. We spend so much time asking questions. Whether they are right or wrong is almost besides the point. We are living at a time when we don't know what's going to happen next. I was speaking with the folks who gather for coffee every Thursday morning, and we were saying how shocked they were. They were saying how shocked they were when I first told them in March that the UUA, the Unitarian Universalist Association, recommended that all UU churches should close until May of 2021. And I remember reading that, and I thought that the UUA was being way too cautious. But here we are. Next month, the board will meet and decide when the church might reopen. And I'm pretty sure that May might just seem too early. Everything that was normal is out of control. And so we want to try to control something or someone, even ourselves. And so we become busy. But doing what? Most of us who still work are freed from from doing things like commuting, which does free up some time. But there are extra things that we must do, especially if you have young children or elderly parents to worry about. At the start of all this unpleasantness, there was the thought that we would have lots of freedom. And in some ways, we do have lots of freedom to do things. But for those of you who have been laid off, you're probably busier than the rest of us who do have jobs. We have lots of freedom to do things differently, but we just seem to be doing a lot more of other stuff all the time. We have no real structure in so much of our lives, and without those external constraints of train schedules and work retreats and school, we find ourselves spreading our work out all along the entire day. We are doing nonstop, but never feeling like we're getting everything done. Why are we doing this? Well, just like nature that abhors a vacuum, people abhor being quiet and silence and being still. And they'll do anything to fill the emptiness because too much quiet is unsettling. A person will step into their car, start the engine, and turn the radio on. and they won't turn the radio off until you're back home or going where you're going. Other people might wake up first thing in the morning, turn the TV on, and just have it running all day long. Whether they are there to watch the TV or not, it's just there, on, until they're ready to go to bed. And even when we go outside, we've got our earbuds on. We're playing podcasts while we're out running or walking the dog. I remember, maybe some of you do too as well, I remember when the first Walkman came out. My buddy Kevin Jesus had one, and we all took turns putting it on and hitting the cassette start button and walking around. And I remember it was amazing. Just the sound was there in my head, and it was like I was the star of my very own music video. Even when we're outside in nature, we're listening to something, we're so inward focused. We don't see other people when we run. We seem to need to fill every waking moment with noise and busyness, every waking moment. But we need to be still. We need at times to be quiet. And you know why people have a problem with that? It's because when things are quiet, things feel empty. And when things and rooms feel empty, we maybe feel empty as well. Maybe meaningless. Like there's nothing else going on. Feels like no one is out there for us doing anything. And that can be a little frightening. And certainly a lot lonely. You know, they say that if you are truly comfortable with someone, you can sit in silence with that person, no problem. Just think of your first love or a good friend, when you would just sit with them in silence and not feel the need to talk. You're just there with them. We need to be still. We need to be able to be comfortable enough with ourselves. We don't feel the need to fill up the space around us with noise or with busyness. But that may not be possible right now. So I'm going to tell you to cut yourself some slack. We are all feeling like we should be doing something more in the middle of this pandemic. I should be using this time to learn to play the guitar or ride a skateboard or get a six-pack down at the local store. No, okay. The truth is, it was a bad joke. It was a bad joke, but I'm too deep into my sermon to stop it and restart again. So I'm going to keep going. I'm going to keep going with my sermon here. There's so many things that we want to do, and we're not going to. And that's okay. We can't control everything. You can't even control your own life, and that's okay. Or as one friend of mine said, it's okay not to be okay. But if you get the chance to be in the present moment, if you are able to learn to be even just a little intentional with your time, to intentionally be still, be silent, to not be in charge, well, that would be good. For some folks, that is found through prayer and meditation, yoga or exercise, but it could be through coloring books or putting a puzzle together or quilting. Tickets still on sale. But finding that discipline in the middle of a pandemic is a tall order. And if I said all you need to do is to set up a schedule for yourself and you will feel great, or if I said all you need to do is take up a spiritual practice and all your problems would melt away, but you would know that I know that would be really hard. I'm not saying that those things couldn't help, but I know that if I gave you those instructions, you would say, does that saddle come with it? Or what kind of wood is that arrow made from? The Buddhist writer Tara Brach tells a story of a woman whose mother informs her that she has breast cancer. The initial shock was really intense, and she went into planning mode. What needs to happen? What are the treatment options? Rather than pausing, she was going into control mode. But in that moment, she says, I was able to do something I would have missed otherwise. Her mother didn't want to talk about any of those things. And as I weighed her medical options, she sat on the high top chair in my kitchen, staring blankly into a cup of coffee. I was trying to be strong for her sake and mine, but it suddenly became clear that that wasn't what she needed. She was scared and needed to be scared. Staying busy was my way of avoiding a total collapse, but being present, pausing and being present allowed me to shift to her way. I took a breath. I walked across the room and wrapped my arms around her. The blessing of a pause. This shift from being in the grip of the controlling self to opening to inhabit loving presence. A sensitivity that can respond to our world with some wisdom. The way that woman responded to her mother was to be present, to move away from controlling and instead to shift to her way. In this time of existential crisis, we need to let go of control and be with those who need us. Amen.
Ave Maria.
Good morning. I'm Melissa Martin, your Member Services and Volunteer Coordinator. My pronouns are she and her. Our December monthly newsletter is now out, and in it you will find descriptions for all of the December services, as well as information from every area of our congregational life. This morning I have a few invitations for you to consider. This week, our Wednesday evening offering of Soulful Sundown will be an online version of our annual service when the holidays hurt. Please consider joining Reverend Hank, our ministerial intern Katie, and some members of our pastoral care team for a time of readings and conversation, lighting of candles, and finding hope and solace together. One way to nurture and explore your individual spirituality would be to check your email this week for more information about our UUCR Chalice exploration and the ways we deepen our connections to our Unitarian Universalist principles. Our dedicated Chalice Facebook group provides an opportunity for reflection and connection. I also invite you to read the newsletter for more information about our caring conversations, liberal ladies, PFLAG, and men's group gatherings all happening this week. There you'll also see some information on how to participate in our nativity service this year. Sally has made it possible for friends of all ages to participate through photographs, costumed in any number of roles. Maybe you could be an angel, or a sheep, or a wise person. Please visit the sign-up link, which you can also find in the service description below, to pick your characters and to get our help with your costumes or decorations. All nativity photos need to be collected by this Thursday, December 10th, so please reach out to us today. Finally, a sincere thank you to everyone who has supported our month-long Kris Kringle online fair. Our proceeds thus far have exceeded our goals, and you still have until noon tomorrow to make any final purchases. Through this humble online event, we have sold almost $200 worth of jewelry, over $2,000 of our handmade boutique items, and close to $800 worth of raffle tickets for the beautiful Whirlwind quilt. Our partner church committee has also sold most of its chocolate, but they do have some dark chocolate still available. More importantly, they still have a significant amount of equal exchange, fairly traded coffee. The sale of these coffee bags will directly support our partner student in the Philippines. Get your coffee today. Please make your final selections and payments for the fair items and your raffle tickets by tomorrow at noon. Thank you for being a vital part of our congregational life.
As I snuff out this flame, will you join me with our closing words? We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts. Our closing words come from Reverend Andy Pakula, minister of one of our Unitarian Universalist churches in London, England. He wrote, "As you prepare to leave this sacred space, pack away a piece of this church in your heart. Wrap it carefully like a precious gem. Carry it with you throughout the joys and sorrows of your days. Let its gentle glow strengthen you, warm you, remind you of all that is good and true until you gather here again in this place of love. Our worship is over. Our service begins. Go